Thank you. So I am Myrtle Millares, one of the two co-founders of Climate Pledge Collective, the other being Matthew Lee Pelkey. So we founded Climate Pledge in 2018. So Bank Switch is our most current and the longest running campaign so far. So Bank Switch is basically about getting everyday people like you and me to contact financial advisors at the top 5 Canadian banks and just let them know that we are unhappy with their current fossil fuel funding policies. And so we provide tools like email templates, letter writing information you could use, and talking points if you'd like to contact your branches. So people have joined BankSwitch. Over 400 people have committed to doing this. So, I mean, it seems like a small number, but really this is more than just a petition over in a couple clicks and then you get updates. Like people are actually communicating with their financial advisors and asking some difficult questions and even escalating that further up the communication chain to get responses. And so for me, this is really important because so banks are obviously fueling the climate crisis with their funding, but in the process, they're also destroying ecosystems, communities, and violating Indigenous rights and human rights, not just here, but across the globe. So for me, that's an important thing to consider. One of the great things is that people and groups and individuals have amplified the Bank Switch message. So I'll share 3 photos here. So on January 29th, there was a big day of action. And here you see Toronto 350's contribution to this. They did a glorious banner drop over the Gardiner first thing in the morning. And they put up eviction notices downtown at the big 5 Canadian banks. So a very noticeable visual reminder of what's happening. But this day of action really just came about from Matt speaking at a For Our Kids online event, and Brianne White, who heads up Toronto's For Our Kids chapter, really wanted to do something, some kind of action. And so as conversation began around this planning across Canada, individuals and groups started to take it and make it their own. So this is just an example of what happened in Toronto, but people in Ottawa, Quebec, and BC, they took part as well. And then if you look to the right, I'll go to the right first. March 19 was the Global Climate Strike Day, and youth activists from Fridays for Future Toronto shut down Bay Street. So this event was covered by the National Observer and Banks, which was one of the campaigns that they talked about. So again, it's great that this message gets spread. And finally, the middle picture was taken on April 1st. So this was the morning of the TD AGM, and youth from Fridays for Future Toronto, in solidarity with Climate Strike Canada and the Divest Canada Coalition, launched Banking on a Better Future. So this is a youth pledge where they are basically saying there's no way we are opening an account with an institution that continues to fund the climate crisis and continues to violate Indigenous and just human rights, generally speaking. So that is accessible on our Bank Switch page on our website, if you're interested. So again, you know, Matt and I are basically the 2 people coming up with campaigns. So it's so great to have other people and groups involved. We certainly couldn't do this work without everybody. So we had originally hoped that Bank Switch, you know, that people who signed up for Bank Switch would move their bank accounts if they don't hear promising changes with regard to banks' fossil fuel lending policies. So the Earth Day has now passed. And so what we're doing now is relaunching it. And so this iteration of Bank Switch has launched with podcasts and radio ads, and you'll hear 2 today. Here we go. This one that you'll hear is now on Classical 96.3 FM.
It's great to see young people taking a stand against climate change. Good thing it's under control.
Actually, it's not. Canadians are among the largest greenhouse gas emitters, so we all need to step up.
What can I do?
Start with your banking. In the last 5 years, the big 5 Canadian banks have pumped over $600 billion into fossil fuels projects, which endanger marginalized communities.
That's awful. How can I help?
Sign up for Bank Switch. Call your bank and tell the branch manager you're looking for a cleaner bank. Find out more at climatepledgecollective.org/bankswitch.
And this next is running on podcasts, but we will also be airing it on the same radio station.
Dear adults, I'm already fighting for a sustainable future and I don't even have a banking yet. I recently learned that the big 5 Canadian banks are using everyday people's money to support the exact fossil fuel companies that are destroying the lives of marginalized communities and the planet itself. I couldn't be a part of it, so I'll be opening my first account with a local credit union, and I'm asking you to switch banks too. We're all working to fight climate change. Why shouldn't our money do the same? Join us and learn more at climatepledgecollective.org/bankswitch.
So obviously the banks haven't really changed much. All of them, I think, are now promising net zero 2050, which we know is too late. So we are hoping with this campaign to continue to spread the word and to push for action. So we certainly couldn't do this work without the incredible supporters that we have, and we benefited from a GNN micro grant this year. We have regular donors to our project fund. If you're interested in helping out with that, that is ongoing. And we have so many crowdfunding contributors too that have given to this project, and volunteers. Like we have youth voices from Climate Strike Canada, Fridays for Future Toronto on our ads, and someone from Artists for Real Climate Action. And just the people that amplify the message. We're really grateful for that. We couldn't do this work without you. So I have some links that you can access to participate, and hopefully you'll sign up for BankSwitch, this next iteration that hopefully will move accounts the next Earth Day. Thanks so much.
I'm going to ask you 2 questions because one of them is quick. One of them is, where do you find your information on the bank's actions? Do you have that on your website?
On actions, oh, on the bank's actions. Yeah, so we have some summaries available about like how much each bank has put into fossil fuel projects. But also Bank Track is a great one. So they list banks not just here, but all over the world. And you can see not just fossil fuel stuff, but anything that's kind of shady, they have details on it, when it happened, etc. So I'd say that's probably the #1 one if you want to check something out.
Awesome. And next question. So fighting the big guns, I'm assuming there isn't always the most supportive environment. So how do you keep going?
Well, they don't like to talk to us, so we don't really necessarily have to talk to them too much. Yeah, it's definitely hard. You kind of find ways to let go of tears sometimes, just as I do with any sort of climate crisis issue. And just knowing how many people are getting involved, I think that really helps, so that it's not just us. And you know, it's mostly me and Matt. We haven't been able to really gather a group of volunteers right now, like consistently to help us out. And so, but just knowing that people are jumping in from all over, like we get emails asking questions, emails that there's like a letter writing workshop happening. Like it's just so great, and knowing that is really helpful and definitely helps us keep going.
And I'm assuming you guys have looked into the credit unions that are clean, obviously.
Yeah, so there are some bigger local ones in Toronto. So like there's Meridian and Alterna Savings, for example. But you know, there's so many local credit unions. I'd say look for one that has values that you share, and your money is secured through CDIC, so they are insured. So look for that on their websites, and just see which one seems like it's going to work for you. So Desjardins is a big one, but they're not entirely clean. They have a green fund currently. So you do want to still ask questions like, do you have a policy around lending? So what does that look like? If there are other ethical issues you'd like to learn about, then you should ask them that too. So definitely smaller is better, because they're not going to be lending a lot of money. They're not going to be companies aren't going to be going to smaller banks or credit unions for that funding necessarily. So already it's a good thing to start looking at.